Hello everyone. This is Shivani Rathan from Army Institute of Education, course B.Ed Special Education. Today I am going to present an OER on the topic Salamanca Statement and Framework for Action, Facilitating Inclusive Education. So let's begin with this OER. Firstly, let's see what we are going to cover in this OER. First, Introduction to Salamanca Statement. Second, the Salamanca Statement, Principles, Policies and Practices in Special Needs Education, which further includes proclamations, what government should do, function of international community, UNESCO as United Agency of Education. Third, Framework for Action, which includes Introduction to Framework of Action, New Thinking in Special Needs Education, Guidelines for Action at National Level, Guidelines for Action at International and Regional Level. Fourth, References. Let's begin this OER from Introduction to Salamanca Statement. A conference was held by Government of Spain in cooperation with UNESCO in Salamanca, Spain from 7th to 10th June 1994. The conference includes more than 300 participants representing 92 governments and 25 international organizations. The objective of this conference was education for all and to promote the approach of inclusion education, namely enabling schools to serve all children, particularly those with special educational needs. The Salamanca Statement, Principles, Policies, Practices and Special Needs Education. Reaffirming that education is the right of every individual as enshrined in 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and also renewing the pledge made by the World Community at the 1990 World Conference on Education for All to ensure that right for all regardless of individual differences. The conference adopted a new framework for action, a guiding principle through which the ordinary schools should accommodate all children, regardless of their physical, social, intellectual, emotional, linguistic, or other conditions. Also recalling the several United Nations declaration culminating in the 1993 United Nations Standard Rules on the equalization on of opportunities for persons with disabilities, which urges state to ensure that the education of persons with disability is an integral part of education system. At last, recognizing as evidence of this involvement the active participation of high-level representatives of numerous governments, specialized agencies and intergovernmental organizations. Now, the Salamanca Statement claims that every child has a fundamental right to education and must be given the opportunity to achieve and maintain an acceptable level of learning. Every child has unique characteristics, interests and abilities and learning needs. Education system should be designed and educational programs implemented to take into account the wide diversity of these characteristics and needs. Those with special educational needs must have access to regular schools, which should accommodate them within a child-centered pedagogy capable of meeting these needs. Regular schools with this inclusive orientation are most effective means of combating discriminatory attitudes, creating welcoming communities, building an inclusive society, and achieving education for all. What government should do? According to this statement, the government should give the highest policy and budgetary priority to improve their education systems, to enable them to include all children regardless of individual differences or difficulties. Adopt as a matter of law or policy the principle of inclusive education, enrolling all children in regular schools unless there are compelling reasons for doing otherwise. Develop demonstration projects and encourage exchanges with countries having experience with inclusive schools. Establish decentralized and participatory mechanism for planning, monitoring and evaluating educational provisions for children and adults with special education needs. Encourage and facilitate the participation of parents, communities and organization of persons with disabilities in planning and decision-making process concerning provision for special educational needs. invest greater effort in early identification and intervention strategies, as well as in vocational aspect of inclusive education. Ensure that in the context of a systemic change, teacher education program, both pre-service and in-service, address the provision of special needs education in inclusive schools. Function of international community. Now, according to Salamanca statement, the international community, which include the government with international cooperation programs and international funding agencies, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organizations, also known as UNESCO, the United Nations Children Funds, UNICEF, United Nations Development Programs, and the World Bank should function to endorse the approach of inclusive schooling and to support the development of special needs education as an integral part of all education programs. The United Nations and its specialized agencies, in particular the International Labour Office, the World Health Organization, UNESCO and UNICEF, should function to strengthen their inputs for technical cooperation as well as to reinforce their cooperation and networking for more efficient support to the expanded and integrated provision of special needs education. The non-governmental organization involved in country programming and service delivery should function to strengthen their collaboration with the official national bodies and to intensify their growing involvement in planning, implementation and evaluation of inclusive provision for special educational needs. UNESCO as the United Agency for Education is expected to ensure that special needs education form part of every discussion dealing with education for all in various forums, to mobilize the support of organization of the teaching profession in matters related to enhancing teacher education as regards provision for special educational needs, to stimulate the academic community to strengthen research and networking and to establish regional centers of information and documentation, to mobilize funds through the creation within its next medium-term plan 1996 to 2002 of an expanded program for inclusive schools and community support programs which would enable the launching of pilot projects that showcase new approaches for dissemination and to develop indicators concerning the need for the provision of special needs education. Framework for action on special needs education. Introduction to Framework for Action on Special Needs Education. The Framework for Action on Special Needs Education draws extensively upon resolution, recommendation, and publication of the United Nations system and other intergovernmental organizations, especially the Standard Rules on Equalization of Opportunities for Persons with Disabilities. The right of every child to an education is proclaimed in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and was forcefully reaffirmed by the World Declaration on Education for All. The guiding principle that informs this framework is that schools should accommodate all children regardless of their physical, intellectual, social, emotional, linguistic, or other conditions. This should include disabled and gifted children, street and working children, children from remote or nomadic population, children from linguistic, ethnic or cultural minorities, children from other disadvantaged and marginalized areas or groups. Special needs education incorporates the proven principle of sound pedagogy from which all children may benefit. It assumes that human differences are normal and that learning must accordingly be adapted to the needs of child rather than the child fitted to preordained assumptions regarding the pace and nature of learning process. The child-centered pedagogy is beneficial to all students and as a consequence to society as a whole. Experience has demonstrated that it can substantially reduce the dropout and repetition that are so much a part of many education systems while ensuring high average level of achievement. A child-centered pedagogy may help to avoid the waste of resources and the shattering of hopes that is all too frequent a consequence of poor quality instruction and a one-size-fits-all mentality towards education. This framework for action comprises the following sections. First, new thinking in special needs education. Second, guidelines for action at national level, which further includes policy and organization, school factors, recruitment and training of educational personnel, external support services, priority areas, community perspective, resource requirements. Third, guidelines for action at the regional and international level. First, new thinking in special needs education. Inclusion and participation are essential to human dignity and to the enjoyment and exercise of human rights. Integration of children and youth with special educational needs is best achieved within inclusive schools that serve all children within a community. Their form of social institution depends upon the conviction, commitment, and goodwill of the individual who constitute society. The fundamental principle of inclusive school is that all children should learn together wherever possible, regardless of any difficulties or differences they may have. Within inclusive schools, children with special educational needs should receive whatever extra support they may require to ensure their effective education. Educational planning by government should concentrate on education for all persons and in all regions of a country and in all economic conditions through both public and private schools. Women and men should have equal influence on the design of educational programs and the same opportunities to benefit from them. Special efforts should be made to encourage the participation of girls and women with disabilities in educational programs. Second, guidelines for action at national level. A. Policy and organization. This section includes scopes education for all. Integrated education and community-based rehabilitation both are based upon principle of inclusion, integration and participation and represent well-tested and cost-effective approaches to promote equality of access for those with special educational needs as part of a nationwide strategy aimed at achieving education for all. Legislation should recognize the principle of equality of opportunity for persons with disability in primary, secondary, and tertiary education in integrated setting. Parallel and complementary legislative measures should be adopted in the field of health, social welfare, vocational training, and employment in order to support and give full effect to education legislation. Educational opportunities should be provided in neighborhood schools. Special attention should be given to ensuring equality of access and opportunity for girls and women with disabilities. Special attention should be paid to the needs of children and youth with severe or multiple disabilities. Special communication needs of children with special needs, like sign language as the medium of communication among children with hearing impairment, should be addressed in the process of inclusion. B. School factors. Developing inclusive schools that cater for a wide range of pupils in both urban and rural areas. Changes in all the following aspects of schooling, such as curriculum, building, school organization, pedagogy, assessment, staffing, school ethos, and extracurricular activities, as well as many others, are necessary to contribute the success of inclusive schools. Adoption of more flexible, adaptive system capable of taking fuller account of the different needs of children will contribute both to educational success inclusion. Curriculum flexibility. Curriculum should be adapted to child's need, not vice versa. Schools should therefore provide curricular opportunities to suit children with different abilities and interests. A guidance principal should provide additional instructional support to children with special needs in context of regular curriculum, not a different curriculum. Teaching should be related to people's own experience and to practical concerns in order to motivate them better. Formative evaluation should be incorporated into regular education process in order to keep pupil and teachers informed of learning mastery attained as well as to identify difficulties and assist pupils to overcome them. For children with special educational needs, a continuum of support should be provided, ranging from minimal help in regular classrooms to additional learning support programs within the school and extending, where necessary, to the provision of assistance from specialist teachers and external support staff. Technical aids to be offered in a more economical and effective way. Appropriate and affordable technology should be used when necessary to enhance success in school curriculum and to aid communication, mobility, and learning. School management. Local administrators and school heads should be invited to develop more flexible management procedures. Successful school management depends upon the active and creative involvement of teachers and staff and the development of effective cooperation and teamwork to meet the needs of students. Parents and volunteers should be invited to take an active part in the work of the school. C. Recruitment and training of educational personnel. Pre-service training should provide sufficient orientation on disability-related issues and learning techniques. Skill required to respond to special educational needs should be taken into account during assessment of studies and teacher certification. In-service training should be provided to all teachers to help them understand the learning characteristics of children with special needs in inclusive setting. Special training in special needs education leading to additional qualifications should normally be integrated with or preceded by training and experience as a regular education teacher in order to ensure complementarity and mobility. D. External support services. The Salamanca Framework for Action states that provision of support services is of must importance for success of inclusive educational policies. Support to ordinary schools could be provided by both teacher education institutions and by the outreach staff of special schools. External support by resource personnel from various agencies, departments and institutions such as advisory teachers, educational psychologists, speech and occupational therapists, etc. should be coordinated at local level. E. Priority areas. The framework suggests that early childhood education, girls' education, preparation for adult life and continuing education should be given special emphasis in the implementation of inclusion. A special is suggested to provide training and education for girls with special educational needs. Persons with disabilities should be given special attention in the design and implementation of adult and continuing education program. Special courses should also be designed to suit the needs and conditions of different groups of adults with disabilities. F. Community perspective. The goal of successful education of children with special educational needs require the cooperation of families and the mobilization of the community and voluntary organizations as well as the support of public at large. Both parents and teachers may need support and encouragement in learning to work together as equal partners. Media should play a constructive role in facilitating inclusion and ensuring the right of persons with special needs. Resources requirements. The development of inclusive schools as the most effective means of achieving education for all must be recognized as a key government policy and accorded a privileged place on the nation's development agenda. Resources must be allocated to support service for the training of mainstream teachers, for provision of resource center and for special education teachers or resources teachers. Appropriate technical aids to ensure the successful operation of an integrated education system must also be provided. Pooling the human, institutional, logistic, material, and financial resources of various ministerial departments like education, health, social welfare, labor, youth, etc., territorial and local authorities, and other specialized institutions is an effective way to maximize their impact. Combining both an educational and a social approach to special needs education will require effective management structures, enabling the various services to cooperate at both national and local levels, and allowing the public authorities and assistive bodies to join forces. Third, guidelines for action at the regional and international level. International organizations, intergovernmental and non-governmental as well as bilateral donor agencies are suggested to join forces in supporting the move towards inclusive schools. The organization of regional partnership or partnership among countries with similar approaches in special needs education could result in planning of joint activities. Such activities should be designed to take advantage of economies of scale, to draw upon the experience of participating countries, and to further the development of national capabilities. The priority mission incumbent upon international organizations to facilitate exchange of data, information, and result of pilot programs in special needs education between countries and regions. Collection of internationally comparable indicators of progress in inclusion in education and employment should become a part of worldwide database on education. Focal points might be established in sub-regional centers in order to facilitate information exchanges. Existing structures at the regional and international level should be strengthened and their activities extended to such fields as policies, programming, training of personnel, and evaluation. It is essential to ensure coherence and complementarity among organizations and other agencies lending international and technical assistance to special needs education. International cooperation should assist in development of regional and international association of professionals concerned with enhancement of special needs education. International and regional meetings covering issues related to education should ensure that special educational needs are addressed as an integral part of the debate and not as a separate issue. International technical cooperation and funding agencies involved in support and development of education for all initiatives should ensure that special needs education is an integral part of all development projects. Thank you and have a nice day.